Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad you're joining our show again this evening. If you have watched our show before, you know that each week we're going to have someone on from the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to help us understand what's happening in the cities, what are some of the issues they're dealing with, what are some of the things that are going to be coming up in the future. And so we encourage you, if you're from Brooklyn Park, because we're very happy to have Mayor Jeff Lunde with us tonight. If you're from Brooklyn Park, take down his email and his phone number. So if some of the issues we talk about tonight are of concern for you, you can be in contact with him.
Absolutely.
And then if the issues are interesting and you're in another city, contact your mayor or city council person there and find out what's happening. Because good government happens when the residents, the city council, the mayor, the staff are all working together and know what's going on. So we're happy to have you with us tonight, Jeff.
Thank you.
I'll let you kind of introduce yourself a little bit to our wider audience.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Park probably has a pretty good handle on
Yeah, I think people have their opinions already made up on me, right?
Right. So you can reach out to some more people.
Yeah, no, I think my third term as mayor, my final term.
Right.
I have 2 years left in my term. Before that, I served on the city council representing the River, the East District. And so I've been involved with many things. I'm a board member for the League of Minnesota Cities. And I'm also a board member for Cities United, which is a national effort to limit and reduce violence in the lives of young men of color.
Right.
And then also a member of the Obama Foundation, My Brother's Keeper. And so very involved with the idea that we can do things to help bridge that gap.
Definitely.
So, I think most importantly, married, have 2 sons that are trying to figure out the COVID school district and everything else, like every other parent. And so we're like everyone else. We're just trying to make do.
Right. They have to during this period of time, right?
Yep.
And then I ask you to think a little bit about what are the issues that residents ask you about the most? What the things people want to learn from you about Brooklyn Park?
Yeah, I think, right now, I think COVID has really overwhelmed everything.
I think you're right.
People who seem to be making it through, it's because they have a job. And people who have lost their jobs have a different perspective. And so we know that there are 2 different needs there.
Yes.
And so we've been trying to work hard with, partners, the state, the county, federal government. Congressman Phillips has been awesome.
Right.
To talk about what can we do to help them, because it's very hard now to get a new job. The jobs aren't out there. And so people, I think, really kind of, there's some unease. And,
definitely.
Because it's not like something we can do anything about.
Right.
With COVID, you can't just go start a new company because where do you get new customers and stuff like that? And so I would say, the effects of COVID, our city budget is going to be, the word brutal.
Sure.
Because we are committed to bringing a 0 tax levy increase, which is going to require cuts.
Right.
And as I tell residents, it's going to require cuts in service. Because you can't get,
there's no way.
Yeah, and it'll be hard for people. Everybody wants that service cut, but not their favorite.
Right.
And so I think right now we're really focused on that. But you know what? Because of COVID and people kind of having to stay home, be tighter, people are paying attention.
More so, right.
Yeah, and so we're getting a lot of questions on things that I normally would be like, people noticed. And so a lot of that too. So we're doing everything we can to answer questions. We do have the one thing I would share is we have since the beginning had what we call the Holy Grail, which is we have a website, COVID, off of brooklynpark.org. And it's every up-to-date information, programs, anything that people need or have questions on.
That's good.
We put there and we keep it updated. We have a team that, so if there's new grants, if there's new food security options, everything is there. And so the council has said, that's our place. We send people there so that they get the updated, and I think it's really worked well.
That sounds like a very useful tool for people. Because it's something you had no part of why you're not working anymore. It's a whole bigger issue that we're dealing with.
And there might be a grant this week, but next week it's gone. Or in 2 weeks we might have a new grant. And so making sure that page is, every time someone calls me, I go, you need to go there. What I know, it's not what's important. What's important is that page, because we know it's updated.
So we'll let people know that if they go on your website, they can connect
it's right off the top. They'll see it, and keep it updated
Okay.
by the day, because things change. The governor issues
definitely.
the mask mandate, the
Right.
rules change, so all of our stuff has been reflecting in that changes.
Oh, that's a very useful tool for people. And that kind of leads right into the COVID response.
Yes.
And we've begun that area already. So kind of overall, the effect on the city, uneasiness.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot of unknowns. You know, people have a routine.
Right.
And I don't care what your place in life is, rich, poor, you know, going up, going down, retiring, starting out, no family, with family, expecting family. You have routines, you get things going, and suddenly routines are changed.
Right.
We know that the school district coming up, I have 2 sons, one's in high school and one's in middle school. We're trying to, like everyone else, we're trying to figure this out. People don't, maybe they have jobs that they can't stay home with their kids.
Yeah.
And so that school was part of their routine.
Right.
Because I now have to provide health care.
Yeah.
Or not health care, but child care.
Right.
And so suddenly everything is kind of disrupted.
Oh, right.
And, you know, I'll never be as good as teacher as a real teacher.
Right.
And so, you know, my wife and I are
It's
fortunate.
a challenge.
Yes, we have the ability we both work at home, so we're kind of task managers with our sons.
Right. Yeah,
so, but some families don't have that. They a single
definitely.
parent, they may have a couple kids, and they don't have that ability because they have to go to work. And so we know that there's struggles. So we're trying to do everything we can to provide what we can.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of work your way through it, trying different things out.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just there's so much aid and programs out there that people don't know where to start. And,
Oh, right.
And not everybody applies, or you can't get that, and so you know, food security is a big one.
Oh, yes.
You know, for a while, remember how when toilet paper was, you know, you still can't get chicken gumbo.
Right.
I mean, if you go to the store, you're never going to find that, and so there's still these shortages. And,
Oh, right.
And so I think we've adapted some, but people still have a lot of things that they're struggling with.
And then how is the usage of masks doing in your city?
Yep.
Because it was first voluntarily and now it's a state mandate.
Yeah.
And is this an issue at all that the council got involved in?
So it's a religious war. If you haven't noticed, the anti-maskers versus the maskers.
Right,
it's a national dialogue. Like,
it's sad.
we found a new way to fight.
Right.
And so we, early on, Brooklyn Park City Council said, we are going to follow the governor's guidelines, no further, no less. That's our thing.
Right.
We're not going to get in the healthcare business. We're not going to become health. We are going to do what they do. So we did not require masks. Frankly, I don't think the idea of having one city have it, another city, the rules weren't even the same.
Yeah.
So when the governor said that, we published it out there. We have taken great pains to remind people that if someone's not wearing a mask, don't confront. You do not know if they have a health concern.
What the situation is.
And it's not your business to know. And so we've really preached that. Wear your own mask. Keep your social distance. We refer to the governor's guidelines, which is pretty clear on that.
Right.
That don't confront people, because there are people who cannot wear them.
Oh, definitely.
And they don't need to tell us their medical history. And so
to strangers.
yeah, I mean, and so I think rather than assuming the worst about people, they're not wearing a mask because they believe this. How about if we just start with the best?
Right.
Maybe they do have something, and it's none of my damn business. So
yeah, it's gotten to be quite an issue instead of just a way of dealing with the COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think one thing that as public officials, I think, and I'll say this at the beginning of meetings, and I think other cities are doing this, we don't have the money to have sign language people.
No.
And so people have told me, and I take a great pain to take off my mask when I'm speaking, because people read lips.
Oh, right. And
so I've been told that by a few people who appreciate that. And so I'll tell people, hey, I'm going to take off my mask as I speak. And it's really meant as a courtesy to those people who have hearing challenges, and they deserve to hear this information.
Yeah,
like
I've thought that when you're watching things on television, sometimes it's a little hard to hear, and how hard it's got to be for people that rely on seeing what people are saying.
Well, I think to our council's credit, we disagree about lots of things. And we have no problem having a good fight.
Yeah.
But when it comes to COVID, the mask, all that, we have been pretty harmonious in that we all agree on these set principles that we're not going to get into people, we have our social distancing set up in our things. we wear masks, but when we're speaking, we take them off, and we don't make judgments on that.
Yeah, sounds like a good way to go.
Yep.
Now, can you give us an update on the construction that you're doing on City Hall? Has the COVID-19 crisis affected that construction?
The good news is people haven't noticed because City Hall was closed for so long, but yeah, we're about 4 months behind. So without sharing any big secrets, a few of the people who led the construction from the construction got COVID or had to be in quarantine.
Oh, right.
So it affected the pace and, and we did have construction done on the sidewalk, which we had heating to kind of keep it ice-free because we have lots of people wipe on it. And so they did it wrong. So they're going to have to, at their own expense, fix it. So it seems like every time we turn around, there's been another delay. And companies, the furniture company, they shut down during COVID. So when we went to get our furniture, we're like, oh, it's going to be 3 more months. And we're like, but most of the staff is starting to move in, but we've also changed the fact that not all staff comes back into the office.
Some can work from home. Huh?
Yes. And so we've tried to be a little adaptable. We try to adapt the principle that if you can get your job done and deliver your deliverables, that's what really matters.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are reconsidering how much and how many can safely work at home and
absolutely
work out just fine.
And we don't know if COVID comes back.
No.
And suddenly there's a go back to the days of April where that kind of lockdown.
Right.
And so we want staff to be flexible. I mean, my day job is an IT manager, and I manage all the end user, which means anything people use. And so we moved 300 employees home. Only 150 are moving back. Because 150 are going to stay home. And our company realized, hey, we're seeing productivity that we never thought possible.
Works better.
Yeah, and plus also the fact is we don't want to expose our employees because we can't afford to have a quarantine hit.
Right.
We have offices all over the country, and what if an office gets quarantined, suddenly that's an effect.
Start that again. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about business development in Brooklyn Park.
Yeah.
What's happening now?
So what I was worried that things would just stop. And what we found is companies that were expanding and consolidating are continuing to do that. And so the development actually has been up. Permits have actually been up. We've seen more construction.
Right.
But the problem is small businesses, restaurants have really been hit hard. And the closure rate is high. And so that industry, I think, has changed forever. I mean, so people who had big dining rooms and they were built on that experience have not done well. So a few of them have closed.
That part is going to take some time to change. And then in your budget planning process, we've referred to it a little bit already. But what were the priorities that your city council looked at as you did the budget for this year? And kind of, are there any changes, or will you continue with the same for the budget you're just getting started on?
Yeah, I think a lot of things did change because Park and Rec programming nearly disappeared basically in the summer, which has had an effect on youth having nothing to do. So when they need stuff to do. And so there's a lot of cutbacks there. A lot of summer staff were not hired on because we didn't have the programming. Also, we usually do interns during the summer for code enforcement. We did not. And so our code enforcement's probably about 2 or 3 days behind what they would be. They're keeping up. It's a delayed, but we've had to explain to residents who said, summer is when all the code violations, right? But in order to keep costs low, services have to be affected, and everybody has their service. But that's been probably the big change. We've kept our investment into police and fire. We have a plan to open up a East District fire station that in this year's budget that we're going to have a good conversation on to see about how we do it. It may not be exactly what we planned. So we're just trying to be frugal because you saw the state announced a $4.7 billion deficit. And we know as a city, historically, that gets handed off down, like they cut our aid, they cut things. And so we know for a fact that our deficit is going to be extenuated by the fact that the state has a deficit.
And now the tax levy for last year, how big of an increase was there last year? And then to talk to the point that you're going to get to no increase this year.
Off the top of my head, I think it was 4.2%. I could be wrong, but it wasn't zero, and it wasn't like 1%. It was in there, and it mostly covered healthcare and employee costs. This year we're going for zero, and that will mean staff cutbacks. That's a fact. 76% of our budget is staff. If you're going to freeze it, you have to eat some costs, and that usually means that we won't replace people retiring. We'll make some changes, and it would be painful.
So over the summer, then you'll accomplish that. So by fall, you'll have some idea where you're at.
I expect it. They already cut money just because of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We cut $2 million
Off the budget.
just in the spring by, summer program and all the stuff we didn't do. Mm-hmm. We already cut the budget. Going into next year, we're going to have to take a look, and no one knows if we don't get a vaccine.
Yeah.
Then this is our reality.
Right, for a while. Yeah.
And so our budget has to reflect the economic challenges of our residents, and that means we have to keep it tight.
So this is a more challenging year because basically city budgets cover the services that people want to have.
Yes.
So when you cut, it's going to be something somebody wants to have.
And we do a lot with, I think there's some stuff that, youth programming after school is a hallmark. So some of that stuff is really it won't be affected, but there'll be some costs. And I tell residents all the time, you will see it and you will feel it, and that's the reality. You cannot cut money and not say, I cut nothing that no one will know.
No, it's not going to work that way because most everybody's pretty much at a balancing point between money coming in and what people really want to have happen.
And some of it might be something like this. Instead of responding to a code enforcement or questions in person, you may get a phone call.
Yeah.
Because that means we can have one person, two people cover the jobs of three, because they're just not going to come out for visits very often. And so those are the things that people will feel, and that's just the way it is.
So to be continued.
Yes, I just say though it would be painful because there's a lot of stuff that we love, and especially as council love, and we all have to sacrifice some lambs.
Yeah, definitely. And then I thought maybe we needed an update on the light rail transit on the blue line, the Bottineau line.
Yeah, my eternal headache right now.
Yeah,
right. No, I think right now we after the announcement by the Met Council, more than anything, I think the announcement failed in one regards because everybody thinks it got abandoned. That's not the case. It's just that one part of it down the southern part where we hooked into the light rail, the Burlington northern part, that's changed, and so we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. I, have no doubt, and I've shared my feelings with many people that the fact that the Met Council excluded the city of Brooklyn Park, all the cities along the line, to make a decision that we've spent years working together on, left a bad taste. And frankly, we have no trust for the Met Council.
Oh, I can see.
And I'll be saying that at our upcoming CMC meetings. I don't know anybody who says, hey, you know what, I didn't need your opinion, I didn't want your opinion. You trust me, right?
Right.
Most people are like, no.
No, it doesn't work very well that
I don't know
way.
how you build trust when you've been talking to somebody and then you purposely say, no, don't need you.
So there's still lots of people concerned, and
the need is greater.
And the need is there.
Yeah, and I think even with COVID, the fact is people still need to get to jobs.
Yes, definitely.
And we still have the same problems, and if anything, it's kind of highlighted the role, how poverty affects people with health care. And so it's a challenge.
Yes.
And to say we're happy, we're not.
No.
Frankly, we have not got, and I've said this before, we've not received the A game for effort. And we've got the D game. And so if you're going to go fight for us against the railroad, fight for us I expect the hardest effort possible.
Oh, definitely.
And I've seen what they can do. Southwest, they did a pretty dang good job.
Right.
And suddenly when it comes to the middle class people up in the Northwest and people in poverty, we get rolled.
Yeah, for a number of years that's happened.
Yes, it's nothing new.
Right.
We've seen it, and it's just confirmed in this year of kind of the idea of talking about equity and opportunity. And the fact that Minnesota is some of the worst in the entire country for gaps means that there's a reason because we continue to do things like this.
Now, you've got some money that's going to cover the costs. The COVID cost money is called CARES, C-A-R-E-S.
It's fund money.
Yeah. So explain that a little bit to people. If they see it in the paper, what is it referring to and what's going to happen?
I don't know if you ever remembered, there was a movie where the star had one day to spend $1 million. And if he spent the $1 million and got nothing to show for it, he would get $1 billion or whatever, okay?
Right.
That's what we have. We have literally 5 months to spend this money. It has to be used for people in COVID.
Right.
And so after 5 months, if we have not spent it, we lose it. And frankly, our taxpayers are paying for these dollars.
Right.
And so we are going to use it. And so it's a race.
Right.
And so we are trying to get that money into people's hands. It doesn't need to be sitting in programs, doesn't need to be sitting. We want it, food security, we want people to help, because it's money that's designated for us to give to people.
Right.
And the faster we get, so we're doing business relief, it's money programs. Part of it is going to cover city salaries.
Right.
Because there are COVID expenses. And so we're trying to make sure we use all the money, I'll be honest. We have 6.1 million, and we want to use 6.1 million.
That sounds like at least you got something interesting to work on
there,
you right?
Know, something I think that's kind of interesting, it's a concept and it's not been fully filled out, is we want to do public health on the go. We have Rec on the Go. Where right. And so we're talking about public health on the go, which is to bring public health out to areas where we know people who are diverse are getting COVID at a much higher rate than white. And so we know that is economic based, and so we're thinking about using some of that money, because it's free money, for public health on the go, to take public health services to people who can't ordinarily get anywhere. So
that's a good thing that's happening.
Yes, it hasn't happened yet. There's still some work to do,
coming.
but it's a concept that we know Rec in the Park work, Rec on the Go, because it brings park services to kids who can't get to places. Right. The same philosophy applies.
And then we'll talk a little bit about crime in Brooklyn Park, what's happening with it, and what have you been doing?
Yeah, I think, overall, crime is down.
Which is good.
We've been doing some good stuff.
Right.
COVID has brought crime. However, there are neighborhoods where crime's up. So even though overall,
parts of the city.
Absolutely. So I know that if you're in a neighborhood that has seen crime go up, the idea that it's gone down doesn't make sense, because it's true, it hasn't.
Right.
But one of the things we have seen is violent crime, and we think that's an outcome of some of the efforts, kind of the fallout from the George Floyd murder.
Oh, sure.
And some of the riots have caused. We've seen this nationally, this trend. You got the COVID, cooping people up, you got all these dynamics, and then you have, I think, a lot of the questions about how effective policing is and stuff like that. And so we know that it plays a role, and so it is what it is. We're very much aware of everything. Yeah,
and you have spent a lot of time and effort in connecting your police department with your community.
Yep. And that has been fractured, because even though we're having these conversations right now, and a lot of people talk about what happened in other cities and wondering about us, and so it breaks even though the relationship locally may be great, the fact that Minneapolis had the murder makes people question things. And that's fair. Right. They have the right to question things.
Definitely.
So.
And then talk about conversations that you've got about police reform and the equity issue.
So we've been meeting in person with COVID precautions spread out, and we've just finished up the 3 by district conversations with residents to try to have that conversation about police reform, equity, things, and trying to get a sense of what are people looking for. And so it's depending on your background, determines a lot about what you feel. But a lot of people feel like locally the police have done a good job. Right. But there's still fears, and they still want us to go through and kind of review and just make sure, and I think that's a fair request, to say there's nothing wrong with saying we want to review a police manual. We've done it 4 times. We'll do it again. But start to talk about things that the police are doing and see if there's ways. One of the things that came out was, hey, stop responding to crime or to loud noises. Well, as domestic abuse advocates will tell you, loud music is often used as a cover. So the cops may show up for a loud noise. It may be an abusive relationship. Right. And so you can't just say, we're not going to do this anymore, because there's a lot of stuff that could be coming into play. Right. So we're having those conversations. We're going to keep having them. We've been a leader nationally in that, and it's been recognized. The Cities United, My Brother's Keeper. And so we know the work we need to do needs to be done, and we just try to do it better all the time. Yeah, lots of issues are getting stirred up and coming to the surface now, I think. I think people, if you've had a good relationship with the police, that's awesome. But it's like a card. I may love Chevy trucks, but somebody else may have had a bad experience and hate Chevy trucks. That doesn't mean they didn't have a bad experience. It doesn't mean their concerns aren't valid. And so with police, we're trying to get into that and understand that for some people there has been concerns. What can we do to make people feel more comfortable from others? Are there any other issues that are going to be up and coming in the future that you haven't started yet, but you're looking? Well, I'll just look at my watch. It's still how many months we have left till 2020 is up.
Right.
So given the pace of which 2020 has bestowed so many presents on
Right.
us, I'm afraid to ask for anything
right.
else. No, I think the big thing is going to be the budgets. Because when we saw the state had a $4.7 billion budget,
right.
and that's a 2-year budget, that's a projected, that they're going to do cutbacks, and those cutbacks are going to hit us. And it means social services, a lot of the things that we don't do are suddenly going to be left undone.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to Senator Hoffe multiple times about, a lot of mental health things for kids with autism, things with developmental challenges. They're being left unfunded to save money.
Right.
Those are our residents. And so what do we do to help them? Because the need's not going away.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of needs.
And so I don't have an answer.
Right.
I mean, it's easy to sit on the sideline and tell people, oh, you shouldn't have cut that, you shouldn't have cut this. But at the end of the day, state constitution and our city charter is budget equals zero.
Right, and you've got several people that are all need to come to some consensus on.
Yep. And I think that's where engagement comes in.
Yep.
Engaging with people, explaining to them, and then, always reinforcing, none of us asked for this.
Right.
We didn't invent COVID. It wasn't started in Brooklyn Park, but we have to deal with it, and so that's what we do. And so a good government deals with challenges.
Oh, yes.
And so that's what we do. That's what people have a right to expect it, and not everything's going to be great.
Right.
It never is.
No, you have to deal with the current situation and come out the best you can.
Well, if you think in history, if you go back about every 10 years, we have something.
Oh, something happens.
The housing foreclosure crisis in 2006,
Right.
2007, which hit Brooklyn Park worse than it.
Oh, yeah.
You've got COVID right now, and 10 years before that, there was something else.
Right.
There are always challenges, and what the strength of the city is how do we rise up?
Right.
And so I think we feel strongly that we do it together, that we're better. But we know there are people who suffer differently than other people. And so people
And
need
you've
different
been
help.
doing a lot of simple things to help people get to know each other
Yep.
and make diversity a plus.
Yeah. Well, and the more diverse our city has got, the lower crime has got. It's not by mistake. We're the most diverse we are in 40 years.
Yeah.
We have the lowest crime in 40 years. And that's not our average. That's the actual number of crime.
That's interesting.
So I always remind people, Minnesotans
Right.
like to think, they always say diversity of crime. No, that's not true. We are the most diverse we've been in 40 years.
Yeah,
we
you
have
are.
the lowest number of crime.
Huh.
And so, again, not lower everywhere, but,
Right.
I think what's important is people, when you walk up to a building and you see some stairs and then you see a handicap ramp, different people need different things to get to that door.
Right.
It doesn't mean them lesser or better. It just means they need different things.
Right.
And so as long as we remember that people have different needs and that all we can do is the best we can and try to provide opportunities, I think that's a good thing.
I think you're right.
We may talk too much, but anyway.
Well, I want to thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking time out of your busy schedule to share information about Brooklyn Park with our audience out there. And we're glad to have you with us, and we'll ask people to tune in next week for part 2 on Brooklyn Park's issues. Thanks. And I have to wave because you can't shake hands now, right?
Actually, the elbows, right?
Elbow, but that's we're a little far apart.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.